Can you get a good chest workout as an intermediate lifter at home with no weights? Absolutely, absolutely, just through simple push-ups. The one trouble is that not everyone will do a push-up in a way that is the most beneficial towards this goal, right? The push-up, there's lots of ways to cheat it. There's lots of ways to make it just a little bit easier and just to make it possible to do one more rep, always, for the most part. But can we use it to get a good workout as an intermediate? Absolutely. And there's a few things we need to do in order to make sure this happens, because it's all in the execution or the technique of the actual push-up. Number one is you need to make sure that you pause at the bottom of each rep. It doesn't have to be a long, exaggerated pause. Just pausing, keeping tension, 1 to 2 seconds is perfect. And then ascending. Number two is making sure that the descent, the eccentric of the movement, your body coming closer to the ground, is quite slow and controlled. It's purposeful. It's not just a flop. So to maximize the growth of our chest, we need to make sure that we pause at the bottom of each rep and we descend slowly on each rep and push powerfully on the ascent, on the concentric. So that being said, that makes it pretty simple, right? That's all you need to do. But the trouble is, like I said, there's so many ways to cheat the push-up, to bungle it, shall I say. And we're going to go over a few things to avoid. So number one is, as mentioned previously, not controlling the eccentric, just flopping to the ground without a care in the world. Now, the reason that this is problematic is because it leaves half of the movement unattended, essentially. So the part that is arguably equally beneficial for muscle growth and just to tire the hell out of your muscles is being completely neglected and ignored. And odds are that, if you're just flopping to the ground, you're not going to be pausing at the bottom either. There's a popular term in the fitness industry called leaving gains on the table. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're just ignoring the eccentric of a push-up. And part of the eccentric of the push-up, one of the really good parts of it, is that you can really take the time to just, do what's necessary to feel out exactly the stretch and, the tension of the chest, right? You want to make sure that you're moving your body in a way that provides the most tension to your chest. Number two is body English, or just not having a stiff body in general, right? So the reason this is bad is because it makes every rep look different. And depending on how you move your body during the push-up, if you're worm-like, if you separate it and try to involve other muscles, you can take tension off of your chest quite easily by using body English in a push-up. So, how do we avoid this? We avoid this by stiffening our body, by, contracting the abs, making sure that we keep a stiff posture, and we just make sure it doesn't change. For the most part, it's just a practice thing, right? And if your core gets tired, if your core becomes the limiting factor, and all of a sudden you start drooping and being a little bit funky, then I guess you need to do some isolation work on your core, my friend, or some planks or something on the side, because the limiting factor should be your chest. Number three is a partial range of motion. So by doing this, you're avoiding the most beneficial part of the movement for muscle growth and strength, which is the stretch. The stretch is essentially the end-all be-all. If you're going to cut range of motion anywhere, it should be at the full contraction, right? So for example, instead of going from full lockout to halfway and then up, you should be going from full stretch to halfway and then up. If you're going to cut range of motion at all, you should not. You should not. Number two is having a stiff body, but your posture is conflicting with the push-up motion. What this looks like the most often is a drooping pelvis, but it's stiff, it's consistent, but it's consistently droopy and it's hitting the floor before your chest. What this does is it essentially takes away tension away from the chest or load from the chest, because there's another point of contact, your feet, your pelvis, and then your chest, right? The weight will be distributed to there, meaning you push less, you literally move less weight. That's not good. That's not good. We want this to be difficult. We want this to ensure that our body decides, hey, oh God, we got to adapt and get stronger and bigger and more juicy in order to avoid this. Don't do it. This is probably the most small mistake you can make, which is a butt too high in the air. And now, why this isn't a huge issue, as long as you have a stiff body, it's consistent, and you're pausing and doing the eccentric and whatnot, is that all it does is it just makes a different part of your chest work. For the most part, the chest is not very complicated. You have your upper and your lower, and arguably the one really low, but that's just, I don't know, that's controversial, and it's arguably underneath the other one, and so it doesn't matter, and you can't see. For the most part, if you're putting your butt in the air, you could honestly use that as a variation. It's just that if you only do that, well, then you could be neglecting some of the gains for the lower half, because what that does is it shifts some of the load onto your upper pecs. Like, say, if I'm bent in a V angle, it'll be working more of my upper chest. And is that bad? Absolutely not. Will it still be working the lower section? Probably quite a bit. And so it's not a huge deal once again. Now, let's say you're not making any of these mistakes and you are pausing at the bottom and you are slowing down your eccentric. Okay, I can still do like 30 reps. Oh no, what will I do? So there's a few ways that we can make a push-up more difficult and not awkward without weights at home. The biggest one, and this is the one we're going to focus on the most, is just increasing your range of motion. And what that looks like is elevating your hands so that way your chest can travel further than your hands. So I use a pair of dumbbells and I put my hands on the black end of the dumbbells. Not the black end, the larger portion of the dumbbell, not the handle, just to get that extra 2 to 3 inches of range of motion. Now, you can work your way up. So for example, if you give yourself 1 inch of extra range of motion, you could probably cut several reps off of your sets like that. And it makes it more difficult, and you're going further into that stretched range, which is more beneficial for muscle growth once again. The second one is drop sets. You could probably use knee push-ups as an effective drop set if your push-up numbers are just getting too out of hand despite adding progressively more range of motion. And a knee push-up can help you to exhaust yourself further without having to rest so long and go for another full set, because the point is to bring your muscle close to just complete exhaustion, a complete failure, right? Now, the last one is elevating your feet. See, now this kind of comes into that one mistake of having your butt in the air. It targets a different portion of the chest, but here's the thing about it, is that once you've gotten to the point where you can have maximum stretch onto your chest, you get that huge range of motion, but you just can't get a great workout from it anymore, then you kind of maxed out your skills there. Then you're delving into more funky exercises, one-arm push-up, archer push-ups, which isn't the point of this video. This is simple push-ups and how to make them work. So by elevating your feet, you are pushing more load than if your feet are on the same parallel plane as your hands. And there are 2 videos that I'll link down below in the description that kind of describe this a little better. They give you the actual numbers of how much weight and what % of your body weight are you pushing in what variations. So feel free to check those out after. They're not my videos, but they're probably helpful to you. And that's about it. Honestly, that's really all you need to worry about, and all you need to do is just pause at the bottom, keep a stiff body, and increase your range of motion as needed. Obviously, there's limits to the range of motion, in which case, elevate your feet. If you're just an absolute behemoth and none of this works for you, get a gym membership. Hope you have a good day. I'm being creative.
I can see that. I would like to say, I hope some of them are like kind of how someone would actually do a push-up, like butt too high in the air, butt too low in the air.
Yeah, I'll do a couple of realistic ones.
Those are fucking what people do. That's for damn sure.
Doing this just lessens the So we don't want to do that. And there should be example. Okay, no. Yeah.